Imagine you're sitting at the kitchen table. You've got a 5-year-old in tears, a phonics book slammed shut, and you find yourself, bargaining.
Oh, yeah. The classic negotiation.
Right. You say something like, just read for 5 minutes and you can go outside and play.
Mm,
We've all been there, or at least witnessed it.
definitely. It's incredibly common.
But what if I told you that exact bargain is the very thing destroying their ability to ever actually love reading? Welcome to the Deep Dive. We are so glad you're here with us today.
Thanks for having me. It's a great topic.
Our mission today is to help you figure out how to transform reading from a tear-inducing chore into a lifelong passion for the kids in your life.
Which is huge.
It is. And we are pulling from a really insightful video transcript today from an educator named Wayne. He runs the YouTube channel For the Kit's Sake. And the video is brilliantly titled, Ants Motivated My Boys to Read.
Yeah, that title really gets right to the heart of the matter. The core premise we're looking at in these sources is that teaching reading shouldn't just be about phonics drills or getting through a syllabus requirement. It is fundamentally entirely about motivation. I mean, if the motivation isn't there, the mechanics simply do not matter.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because it sounds great in theory, but how do we actually make kids want to read?
That is the big question.
We've all seen the kid who would rather do literally anything else than open a book.
Yeah.
And the source material starts by breaking down motivation into two phases, extrinsic and intrinsic.
Right.
Extrinsic motivation is that classic read for 5 minutes and then we can go outdoors approach.
Exactly. When you are motivated to perform a behavior just to, earn a reward or avoid a punishment, you are operating extrinsically. It is an incredibly common classroom or household tactic, mostly because, well, in the short term, it usually gets the compliance you're looking for.
It gets the compliance, yeah, but think about what it actually communicates to the child. It's like telling a kid they can have dessert only if they eat their broccoli.
Oh, that's a perfect analogy.
Right. By setting it up that way, you immediately brand the reading as the unpleasant broccoli. It just becomes this chore that you have to endure to get the actual reward, which is going outside.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, what we're really looking at is a profound psychological shift in how the brain perceives an activity.
Okay, how so?
Well, the source makes it clear that extrinsic motivation isn't inherently evil. I mean, motivation is motivation, and sometimes you just need to get the ball rolling.
Sure.
But the danger lies in the brain's reward circuitry. When you consistently reward an activity that should theoretically be enjoyable on its own, it completely changes the brain's framing of that activity.
Wow, so it stops being fun.
Yeah, you are effectively telling the child's brain, this is labor. You are being compensated for your labor.
The brain stops seeing it as an adventure and starts seeing it as a toll booth. You just pay the toll to get to the good stuff.
Exactly. It strips away the innate natural desire to just explore. The dopamine release shifts from the act of reading itself to the reward at the very end.
That makes total sense.
So the child isn't reading because they want to find something out. They are reading to escape the reading. The intrinsic joy is entirely paved over by the transactional nature of deal.
So if extrinsic rewards accidentally make reading look like this dreadful transactional chore, we have to figure out how to cultivate intrinsic motivation.
Right. We need that internal drive.
We need that internal desire to find things out just for the sake of finding them out. But manufacturing that in a kid who's already completely checked out feels almost impossible.
Which naturally brings us to the specific psychological framework we are diving into today.
Yes, let's get into it.
The framework relies heavily on the work of renowned researcher John Guthrie, who is famous for his work on reading motivation. Guthrie outlines 3 non-negotiable factors that encourage this intrinsic motivation. Those are interest, dedication, and confidence.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Because when looking at that first factor, interest, the source material shares this brilliant anecdote.
Yeah, I love this story.
It's so good. The educator, Wayne, wanted to get his own sons interested in reading. But he didn't actually start with a book.
Right.
He started with an experience, just a conversation. They were chatting about extreme weather, specifically tornadoes, and out of nowhere, one of his sons asks, what if an ant ends up in that tornado?
Such a perfectly bizarre, wonderful representation of how a child's mind works.
It really is amazing. That ridiculous question sparked genuine curiosity. They urgently wanted to know the answer.
Yes.
And that desire to know what happens to the ant is what actually led them to the books. They wanted to find out more.
The data suggests the very first step isn't picking up a book at all. The first step is to simply observe the child. Look at what they are naturally drawn to.
Just watch them.
Right. If a child in a classroom is totally checked out during story time, watch what they do during free play. Are they building towers? Are they fascinated by bugs?
Find a book that matches the fascination that's already there.
Precisely. You build a bridge to their existing world.
But I have to say, this feels completely counterintuitive to how traditional education usually works.
Oh, absolutely.
We usually start by handing a kid a book that the curriculum dictates.
Right.
We have a syllabus, we have a list of approved literature, and we tell the kid, read this. We'll tell you why it's interesting later.
Yeah, that's the standard model.
So the argument here is essentially that we have the whole formula backwards.
It requires a massive shift in perspective from the adult. We are so used to leading the instruction, but following the curiosity requires flexibility.
Which is hard.
It is, and that ties directly into the next strategy for building interest-providing autonomy.
Okay, so giving them choices.
Exactly. Even within the rigid structure of a classroom syllabus where you can't just read about ants and tornadoes all day, autonomy is still possible.
But here is where I get stuck. If I'm a teacher, I have a state-mandated curriculum. I can't just throw out the reading list.
Right.
My hands are tied. How do you introduce autonomy when the choices are already made for you?
It feels that way, but you can still introduce autonomy by changing the environment of choice.
Okay, how does that work?
The strategy suggested by Wayne is taking the child or the class to the library once you've observed their baseline interests. You let them choose a storybook to physically bring back and place into the classroom or home library.
Oh, I see.
So when it's free reading time, you ask them, what book would you like to read? You are giving them ownership over the material.
That makes a lot of sense.
Psychological ownership is incredibly powerful. Even the most unmotivated reader will suddenly show a spark because they are about to hear a story about a topic they are already familiar with, and most importantly, a topic they selected themselves.
That makes total sense. Yeah. If I pick the book, my brain has a vested interest in validating that choice by seeing what's inside it. And there's another layer to building this interest, which is moving it away from being this isolated, lonely activity.
Yes, the social aspect.
Sitting a child down, giving them a reader, and just having them point at words and read aloud by themselves feels like an interrogation.
It feels like a test. The focus narrows entirely onto performance rather than comprehension or, enjoyment.
Right.
Instead, shared reading should be a communal social experience. You read as a whole class, or you group kids together.
Also, they are interacting with each other.
Exactly. You have them talk about what they liked about the story, or you have them work together to draw a picture of what happened. You make the act of processing the story a collaborative social event.
Okay, so we observe them, we find their metaphorical ants in a tornado, we give them the autonomy to choose, and we make it social. That captures a child's interest in the moment.
Yes, they are engaged right now.
But interest is fleeting. A kid might be fascinated by an ant today and completely forget about it tomorrow. For a lifelong habit to form, that fleeting interest has to crystallize into something deeper. They need to believe that the act of reading actually matters in the real world.
And that necessity for long-term purpose is what Guthrie defines as the second factor, dedication.
Dedication, okay.
In this specific context, dedication is not just about a child working hard or putting in the hours.
So what is it?
Dedication is the child's fundamental, deep-seated belief that reading is important and that it serves a concrete purpose in their life. It's about seeing the utility of the work.
It makes me think of learning a foreign language. If you were sitting in a classroom and you only ever see those foreign words inside a sterile textbook, the entire exercise feels completely pointless.
Right, you're just memorizing sounds for a test.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But if you travel to that country and you are standing in a bustling subway station and you have to read a subway map in that foreign language to figure out how to get to your hotel before dark.
Oh, suddenly it matters.
Suddenly, those words aren't just a drill anymore. That language has immense immediate value. It is literally unlocking your environment.
What's fascinating here is how the human brain evolved to prioritize information that helps us navigate our environment.
Right.
The source material specifically uses the example of looking at words on a map. When a child looks at a map, those words tell them where to go, what landmarks to see, and what to do next.
It's functional.
Very functional. When you encourage kids to find and use words in their physical environment, whether it's a map, a menu, a street sign, or a recipe reading, instantly stops being this abstract reading session that happens at 10:00 a.m. on a Tuesday.
Right, right.
Transforms into a vital survival tool.
It gives them a reason to care that goes way beyond, my teacher told me to do this.
Right.
It gives them power over their surroundings.
Exactly.
They can order the food they want off the menu. They can find the playground on the map. They are unlocking the world.
The brain files that skill under essential for life rather than arbitrary school task. That is true dedication.
Okay, so once a kid realizes that reading a map actually helps them navigate the world, they have the dedication, they have the purpose.
Yes.
But what happens when they open that map, see a massive jumble of letters, and completely freeze?
Yeah.
It's like looking at a wall of impenetrable computer code.
Yeah.
All that dedication, all that interest in the destination just vanishes if they are terrified of failing. The emotional safety net has to be there.
And that is so important. A lack of motivation very often stems directly from a profound lack of confidence.
We don't really think about it like that.
We don't. As educators and parents, we see a child shut down and we assume they are bored or being stubborn. We completely forget the heavy cognitive load that reading demands.
That's hard work.
It is.
Mhm.
When a child is decoding text, their brain is working in absolute overdrive. They are translating a visual shape into an auditory sound, holding that sound in their short-term memory, looking at the next shape, translating that, and then trying to blend the two together.
Oh, wow. When you put it like that, it sounds exhausting.
It is mentally exhausting. If they don't believe they can do it, the brain simply refuses to expend the energy.
Which means we have to address the final and arguably the most crucial factor in Guthrie's framework, confidence.
Yes, confidence.
And the source material offers a couple of strategies to build this confidence that honestly threw me for a loop.
Oh.
Yeah. The first one is that letting kids read familiar books based purely on memory is actually a good thing.
It is a significant shift in perspective, especially for educators who are trained to focus entirely on phonics and decoding.
I have to push back on this a little bit because I think a lot of people listening might be thinking the same thing.
Go for it.
Wait, isn't memorizing just faking it? If a kid has heard a story so many times that they could just recite the words on the page without actually blending the sounds or decoding the technicalities of the letters, are they really reading?
That's a fair point.
Isn't that just a parlor trick that masks a lack of skill?
This raises an important question. What is the actual goal in those early stages? Is it technical perfection, or is it building the identity of a reader?
Okay, identity.
The educator in our source material, Wayne, admits he used to think exactly like you. He used to dismiss memorization.
Interesting.
He didn't praise it because he felt the child was just faking the mechanics. But then he had a revelation.
What changed his mind?
By validating the child's attempt, by saying, "Wow, good job, you read that whole page." He was building an essential behavioral foundation.
Ah, I see. He was building the confidence before the competence.
Exactly. You are making the child feel like a reader before they technically are one in the strict decoding sense.
Right, because feeling successful matters.
That feeling of success, that dopamine hit of "I did it," is what gives them the emotional armor to actually start tackling the hard work of blending and decoding later on. It validates their identity. They categorize themselves as someone who reads.
It's like the fake it till you make it approach applied to literacy. And I love that because identity is just so powerful.
It really is.
But the second strategy for building confidence is just brilliant in its simplicity. It's a basic but easy trick for shared reading called the deliberate pause.
It's highly effective for managing that cognitive load we talked about earlier. Walk us through how it works.
So imagine you are reading a book aloud to a class, or even just one-on-one with a child who you know is struggling and lacks confidence. You're reading a sentence, something like, "Still there were moments Adam wished he had." And then right before the next word, you deliberately pause.
But it's not a random pause.
Right. You don't just pause randomly. You pause right before a very simple high-frequency word that you know for an absolute fact this specific struggling child already knows, a word like I or the.
You are intentionally engineering a moment of friction that you know they can overcome. You set them up for an easy win.
You pause, and you look at the class and ask, who knows this word? And if that specific child doesn't raise their hand, you gently prompt them. You say, "I think you know this word. Do you want to give it a go?" And because the word is completely within their grasp, they read it. They read that one simple word out loud.
And Wayne's video points out that when they read that one word all by themselves in front of everyone, you can literally see their face light up.
Yes.
Because in that single moment, the insurmountable mountain of impenetrable code just became scalable. The emotional safety net caught them.
Wow.
Getting them to read just one word on every page starts to slowly accumulate into genuine confidence. They get that little burst of dopamine.
They realize they can actually do it.
Exactly. They go from, I can't do this, to, well, I can do a little bit of this. And that little bit is the engine that drives the whole process forward.
What does this all mean? When we look at everything we've explored today, everything Guthrie has researched, it all synthesizes into one clear trajectory.
It does.
We are trying to move a child from saying, I'm reading because my teacher said so, and if I read for 5 minutes, I can go outside, to the ultimate beautiful goal. A child who stands tall and says, I am a reader.
It's a fundamental shift in identity. It requires us to step back and look at the whole child, their emotional state, their environment, and their natural curiosities, rather than just their technical ability to sound out a vowel.
Let's do a quick recap of the journey we've taken on this deep dive.
Here.
We started by recognizing the trap of the broccoli problem, how extrinsic chores and forced bargains can accidentally kill the intrinsic love of a good book.
Right, turning reading into labor.
Exactly. To fix that, we lean into John Guthrie's framework. First, we spark interest by tossing out our preconceived syllabus for a moment and following their natural, sometimes bizarre curiosity. We look for their ants in a tornado.
Yes.
Next, we build dedication by moving words off the page and showing how print operates as a vital survival tool in the real world, like navigating a foreign city with a map.
Unlocking the environment.
You got it.
Yeah.
And finally, we forge that critical confidence by validating their attempts, letting them memorize if it makes them feel powerful, and celebrating the tiny single-word victories.
It's a very humane, empathetic approach to teaching. As we wrap up, I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over.
Okay, let's hear it.
The framework we've discussed is designed for young children who are just learning to read. But human psychology, especially when it comes to motivation, fear of failure, and cognitive load, doesn't actually change that much as we age.
Oh, that is so true. We just get better at hiding the fact that we are terrified of the impenetrable code.
We do. Think about a complex, intimidating skill that you are trying to learn right now in your own life.
Yeah.
Maybe you are trying to learn a programming language, or you're picking up a new instrument, or you're finally trying to tackle financial literacy and investing.
Those can be daunting.
Ask yourself, are you treating your own learning like a chore? Are you trying to bribe yourself with an extrinsic reward, forcing yourself to eat the broccoli just to get to the dessert? Or have you taken the time to find your own ants in a tornado? Have you found the specific, quirky angle that sparks your innate curiosity and builds your confidence one single word or one single step at a time?
I love that. It all comes back to finding the motivation behind the mechanics.
It really does.
Once you have the engine running, the pedaling takes care of itself. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive.
It's been a pleasure.
We encourage you to keep questioning your assumptions, keep learning about how you learn, and most importantly, keep finding the fascinating, curious details hidden in your everyday life. We'll catch you next time.